moved into the truck. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read something from in here. The snow's getting real heavy. They say it's supposed to turn to rain, and so I'll tell you what. I'm going to leave the camera going out there for all you who enjoy watching the snowfall. And while I sit and hear the safety of the truck like a little pussy, while I sit here in the safety of the truck, I'll share some more. Hey Steve, my story begins on my old property just south of Alberta, Ontario. It was getting towards dusk, and I always liked to head out into the woods and tuck myself in somewhere and just relax and listen to the critters starting to wake up. I was in full camo and had a .22 with me in case I saw a grouse. I set up on the crossroads of 3 game trails, sitting at the base of a tree. All of a sudden, I hear something coming, so I get still, and I see my flock of turkeys coming over the hill. They walked right past me, and I was just watching and enjoying. As soon as they walked out of sight, I got up to stretch my legs, and that's when I heard a sound I've never heard before. It was a cross between a growl and a yell, and I felt it in my chest. I was frozen in fear while I had shivers everywhere. I mustered enough balls to look in that direction but saw nothing and didn't hear anything else after that. I slowly walked back to camp, walking backwards most of the way. Not like that .22 would do much anyway, but it was up. This was back in 2010, and I've been doing research on and off, and I found a video with Sasquatch sounds, and I heard that exact noise recorded and had shivers up my spine instantly. I wish I had more of a story for you, but I'm not sure I would want to see it anyway. LOL. Thanks for having this channel. It's nice to get this off my chest. Take care, brother. All right, man. Thanks for that email, Philip. And obviously, if you're on this channel, you know as well as I do, there is literally hundreds and thousands of people who have heard the same thing you have, all right? And it's good to listen to your instincts. All right, next up, titled Thunderbird and Sasquatch. Hi, Steve. Thanks for what you're doing. Hope you stay the course. Me personally have never seen a Sasquatch, nor do I wish to. However, back in 1996, in a remote area of Northern California, I did have an encounter with a bird referred to by First Nation people as a Thunderbird. I was traveling the western states, often off the beaten path, when in late August, I found myself sitting on a mountain slope near the town of Weed, California. This is semi-arid mountain forest with a tree here and a tree there. My quiet contemplation of the scenery was suddenly interrupted when I heard from behind me the sound of compressed air approaching, not unlike when a large bird lands. This, however, reached the noise level of thunder. Before I could react in any way, a huge shadow was gliding over me. By the measure of a dead tree in front of me, which had the approximate length of my car, I estimate the shadow to be at least 30 feet across. Some of the compressed air hit me from behind, and I rocked forward. When I looked back up, I saw the silhouette of a large raptor-like bird disappearing over the tree line. Years later, I read the account of an Alaskan pilot who had seen a raptor-like bird the size of his little Cessna plane. That made me feel much better about my experience. Back to present-day Vancouver Island where I live. Following your channel for over a year, I haven't come across the recounting of a semi-official Sasquatch sighting in an area close to where I live at the foot of the Beaufort Range, East Vancouver Island. So I'd like to do this as this is a funny story, which also shows the official attitude towards our topic. This happened in fall of 2013 or 2014. It could easily be researched if needed. The news headline on our local Czech news station read, "Chimpanzee plays with local children." There's a subdivision that reaches far into the Beaufort Range with acreages amidst the forest. A handful of kids were playing on their dirt road when suddenly a, quote, chimpanzee, end quote, appeared from the forest. When the kids were later interviewed about this, they say, the chimpanzee wanted to play with us. When asked how they knew that, they just shrugged and said they knew it. The RCMP was notified and the news station appealed to the owner of the chimpanzee to come forward. Needless to say that neither the chimpanzee nor any owner was ever heard of again. I do have a few more second-hand encounters, so I heard it from the people who had the experience, if you're interested. All the best and cheers, Carmen. All right, thanks, Carmen. And just so you know, there is a lot of Sasquatch sightings around Port Alberta. A lot. And I'm actually looking to possibly purchase a horse property up there, up the Beaver Creek Road area, possibly. I'm going to go check it out next week. But yeah, there's no shortage of sightings around there at all. There is a lot, especially between Port Alberta and Tofino, including Tofino as well, right? And actually, Ukilet, Banfield, all over. All over there's a hotbed. And as far as the Thunderbird goes, I don't know anybody firsthand who's told me of an experience. I've heard rumors of them. I haven't looked into it too much myself. It's definitely one hell of an interesting topic. And I'd like to know some details on it. Like, is it massive feathers? Is it webbed like a pterodactyl would be? Or possibly? I don't know. I haven't a clue. But it's definitely an interesting topic to talk of for sure. I think I might look into that Alaskan pilot story and read up on it too. Definitely not something I'd want to have swooping down and grabbing me by the shoulders and taking me away while I'm steelhead fishing one day. That kind of suck. But again, thanks for sending that email out to us. Appreciate it. If you got more from the area, definitely email away. We'll get to it and share it. Here's another one. Steve, I've been following your channel for over a year now, and I'm glad I found you. I have encounters from time to time with these beings. In one of your very recent videos, you're in your horse barn, you mentioned direct eye contact. My first sighting was in daytime and involved a juvenile male. He was about 6 feet tall, lean and lanky. His hair was short and black. This was in 1953. He rattled some brush to get my attention, and when I looked, we stared into each other's eyes for about 10 seconds. Then he began to walk away and vanished. I did not know what it was I was looking at. Bigfoot was not a topic anyone really talked about at the time. I was not frightened in the least. I was just curious. Later that night, when I shared it with my father, he validated me and told me what they were. We have those in Wisconsin, he said. He was also a cop, and that might be a reason for him not to sugarcoat it. I never gave it any thought after that, but I would not play in the woods anymore, and later I was fearful of camping and did not know why. You're right about the camera light and direct eye contact, but another thing they cannot stand is loud noises. Motorcycles, ATVs, barking dogs, and guns. Later, when I moved to Northern California mountains, encounters around my property began with them knocking on the wall closest to me. I knew better than to return it. They also like to look in when I'm on my computer. They look in my windows from time to time, or I see them crossing the road when I'm driving through the woods. So far, so good. I still get scared out of my wits when they look at me through the window. They're huge. This is just a window between us. And like you say, if they want to do me harm, they certainly could. No one to call for help, so I just go to bed. At this point, they don't seem to mean me any harm. Who knows in the future? Luckily, I have a couple of friends I can talk to that are having the similar type experiences. But your channel is showing me the patterns of behavior they seem to follow pretty consistently. They seem to be everywhere now. In 1953, no one even talked about them. I asked myself, is it because they're deliberately making themselves more public, or are they just more people out in the woods? So many questions and few answers. Thanks for what you're doing. I like that you're a messenger and not a researcher. I am with you on wondering if we'll ever know what they're all about. Judy Benjamin. P.S. You can read this and use my name if you'd like. All right, Judy, thank you so much for sending that email. I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else here does, without a doubt. And that's pretty interesting that you have ongoing experiences and they're looking in your window. If you would, I would strongly suggest don't get a hold of those dirtbag BFRO people or anybody else that are similar to them, because all they're going to do is report you to the government, and they're going to come out to your property and screw everything up. I will guarantee it. All right, so just say no to the BFRO, okay? They're not the top of the... Not all of them. Like I said, there's a bunch of researchers that are great people, but the people at the top are absolute scumbags. All right? Now, what do we got here? Here's another one. This is the second time I've written to you. The first time I was listening to your channel and things kept occurring, so I think I skipped around a lot. First, I'm 64, soon to be 65, and in poor health, mainly because I did not take care of myself and started working for my dad's construction company when I was 14, working Saturdays and then 6 days a week during the summer. We built houses and then added steel grain bins and the handling equipment associated with grain farming, augers, aeration, and drying equipment. My brother is 2 years younger, and until I started working, we were together constantly, playing outdoors and helping with the garden and yard work. We grew up in the farm that was owned by Grandma and raised beef for our family, as well as my dad's brother's family. I don't know why we're the ones that took care of the cattle and the alfalfa hay fields, baling and putting it in the barns for feeding over the winter. My uncle had 4 sons that were older than me and could certainly have helped, but they never did. Instead, they'd sneak down here and steal the peaches when they got ripe and help themselves to watermelons. They never got in trouble for it either. So my little brother and I spent a lot of time playing army. His dad had been in Germany in World War II and had been hit with shrapnel that went clear through his thigh, and it took out 3 inches of his femur. It was so hot that it cauterized the wound as it went through, and that kept him from bleeding to death as he lay there for the rest of the day and late into the night when 4 of his buddies came back for him as they promised they would. They had to go back and borrow a jeep to get him because his leg was just dangling. And they hadn't brought a litter. He managed to live, and despite having one leg shorter than the other, worked until he was 87. And his job, reading meters for the Rural Electric Co-op, was phased out when they installed self-reading meters. My brother and I killed a lot of Germans. The county put in a new road, and that ran in front of our house to replace the old road that wound around between the little farms that dotted the countryside from where it crossed the Sangamon River, a mile south of us, to the small town where I went to grade school 4 miles to the north. They straightened out all the corners and built a new lake where it crossed a deep ravine half-mile to the north. These were our stomping grounds. There wasn't a culvert between here and the lake we had to crawl through playing army. These were 18 inches in diameter and made of concrete. We were fearless, unlike now when I'm so claustrophobic I can't stand to sleep with a blanket on. We spent a lot of time at the river, fishing, and when we got older, taking float trips from one bridge to the other 10 miles downstream, drinking Little Kings and maybe inhaling the smoke from an unnamed herb. When I was about 12, my brother and I were shooting baskets on the concrete apron in front of the garage one evening during the summer. Mom and Dad had gone down to town to get groceries and left us at home. The garage sits back into a hill, and the roof on the backside, where there are 2 rooms, comes down to within 3 feet of the ground. We could jump up on there and climb up over the garage roof if the ball got stuck behind the backboard, or a frisbee landed on the roof. I think we were playing a game called Horse. One of us would pick a spot and shoot, and if we made it, the other had to do the same shot. If they missed, they got an H and then the ORSE. If they made the shot, they got to shoot, and it was switched back and forth. As we were playing, a piercing woman's scream came from the backside of the garage. It was loud. I could feel it. I froze, as did my little brother. "What was that?" we both said. I grabbed his arm and pulled him towards the house, not knowing what it was and whether it was going to come up over the roof at any second, as the sweat turned cold on my neck and arms. We got inside and locked the door. I don't know how long it was before our parents got home, but we both confronted Dad with what we'd heard. They could tell we were frightened, and Dad said he didn't know, but it could have been a fox, as they screamed like that. He knew it wasn't a fox, but he didn't want to frighten us any further. I called my brother after I wrote to you the first time and cautiously asked him if he remembers when we were kids and heard the woman scream behind the garage. He said, "I thought we agreed it was probably a big cat, like the panther they used to say they saw." I said, "Big cats don't scream like a woman, and it sure as F wasn't a fox like Dad said." I told him about your channel and how many people were coming forward with the exact same experience, only they saw what it was. What was it?" he asked. "It was a Sasquatch," I said. He was silent for a moment and then said, "Wow." I asked him if he remembered finding all those bones by the spring-fed creek on the neighbor's farm, but he didn't remember that. Thanks for letting me tell this and finally figuring out what it was that screamed at us that night 52 years ago. I'm not sure it brings closure to the incident, but it helps. Be safe, Steve. You can use my name if you ever want to tell this long, boring account. Danny Matthews, Mechanicsburg, Illinois. All right, Danny, thanks for that email, man. I'm glad it helped. I'm glad all the other people sending in their emails here through me to share with all of you. I'm glad they helped. All right, here we go. Red Deer River and Cynthia, Alberta experiences. Hello, Steve. My name is David Lee, and feel free to use my name. I really appreciate you and what you're doing for those of us who have had unnerving experiences while in the bush. The confidence you give to each of us that have come forward is just amazing. Back in 1986, I was an indestructible 19-year-old who played school rugby, was an okay hockey player, and was active in the woods, fly fishing and hunting. I was spending an extended weekend along the Red Deer River, just downstream from Mountain Air Lodge, fly fishing for rainbows and cutthroat trout, and had done quite well the first 2 days, even keeping a couple that I released into the grease. The third morning I woke early, pre-5 a.m., got out of my tent and wandered down to the river to clean up. There was nothing like 2 palms of ice-cold mountain fresh water to grab your attention, which I did. So now fully awake, I noticed a figure hunched over across the river. At first I thought it was a fair-sized black bear either getting a drink or more likely had wandered upon a foul-hooked trout that someone had released back to the river instead of keeping it. I think we both saw each other roughly the same moment, and out of courtesy I nodded my head and then raised my hand as a gesture of, "Hey, how's it going?" But instead of returning the welcoming gesture, he rose to stand on his hind legs and in a graceful and fluid motion pivoted from facing the river to the woods and then walked up over the riverbank into the woods. I gathered up my toiletries and went back to camp, got the embers to glow, and gently built a fire to get some coffee going and some trout and eggs. It was as I was having coffee that my usual attentive brain kicked in and said, "Bears don't walk up and over a river on their hind legs and into the woods. If a bear is alarmed, it may raise up to assess the threat before returning to all fours and walking away, or if it is startled, it may bluff charge and swipe at the ground. But the action of that bear that morning has me confused for over 30 years now." Several years later, in 1998, my hunting buddies and I were bow hunting near Cynthia, back on an oil lease we had permission to use. We hunt in a style with a central camp with our wall tent set up and a wood stove inside and a supply of wood already bucked up and split, and even a lean-to park our machines out of the weather. We usually go out for moose for 10 days, and my next encounter happened only 2 days into our hunt. I'd parked my machine just off the trail beside some willows and walked a cut line about a mile or so to my stand. I climbed up to my stand, settled in, and aside from my cow calls, I never heard or saw anything. However, on the walk back to my quad, several strange things happened that have kept me out of the woods ever since. I had just started walking when I saw a black bear about 50 or 60 yards out, so I froze and let my camo do the work of breaking out my outline. Shortly after the bear had passed, I began walking again. When I froze, something in my brain had ordered me to stop. I was come over by paralyzing fear. It was as if the fear was instructing me to not see something, but I remember an enormous shape just before I froze, although details on this mysterious shape are still sketchy at best. I just remember things like, "Don't look and do not see me." But it was just a projected thought. There were no words or images used to get this message across. That was 23 years ago, and I have not returned to hunting and fishing until this year. But as you say, I had my head on a swivel the entire time. The Cynthia experience cost me a good friend and my passion for hunting and fishing. I know you can't wave a magic wand and take this anxiety away, but I'm still thankful for a place to get this off my chest. I know now that both occurrences were by the Sasquatch being. The first one is special to me because it didn't want to scare me, and even though I think I've had reasonable education, I didn't realize something is off until a good 20 minutes later. So there are my accounts. I hope maybe they will help someone else come forward and gain some closure or understanding. My condolences to you for the loss of Macaroni. It's always heartbreaking to lose a close friend, feline, canine, horse, or human. Best luck in the future. Sincerely, David Lee. Wow. Okay, David, thank you. Thank you so much for that email, man. And I'm glad you found the channel. I'm glad it's helping. And again, and thank you for the kind words about my horse. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that's made mention. Well, Macaroni, he's actually, where is he? He's only about 300 yards from me right now. Over under a big tree. But anyway, yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt what you've seen, and you've heard enough people on this channel alone share their experiences with having those messages projected in their heads. And you, like every single one of those other people, didn't ask for that experience, right? So, you mentioned you lost a friend over this. Well, I guess you got nothing to lose then. What you should probably do is copy and paste this particular video and email it to them and tell them to read it and to read a bunch more and tell them to listen to it. Tell them to listen to a pile of the other people's messages that are being shared here as well. And maybe they can eat a little bit of knowledge pie that might help get through this lifetime a little more smooth. But anyway, there you go. I got to get my butt in gear, you guys. I'll see what else I can come up with a little later.